All right, today we are going to talk about the crappy small parts that are out there wasting everyone's time and causing unnecessary repairs. This totally sucks, and I really want to call your attention to this. So I'm going to do it by showing you 3 different iPad minis that are all here for the same problem, which really is just a parts problem. And I want to make sure that everybody has this on their radar screen. So this is an iPad mini original that's here for no backlight. So when I connect a screen and an LCD and I hit the power on button, I think it should power on. Let's prompt it to boot. Maybe that battery is low. Let's see. Off to a great start. Charge up, yo. All right, so there it goes. So I'm not able to prompt it to boot here with the power button. Let's get it to boot. And you can see that the Apple logo is produced. So that means if it can produce that Apple logo, that it doesn't have a backlight problem. Let's get the battery connected. It looks like the battery itself is a little bit loose. Yep, from holding it up. Really, really want to get my webcam working. All right, so let's see. Will you boot? All right, so I think the battery's connected now. All right, so this is an Apple logo, so it doesn't have a backlight problem. And we're going to see what happens and why they think it has a backlight problem, and then we're going to drill down on what this problem really is. This has been frustrating for, you know, for customers, for people that send things out for repairs that they don't really need, and cause secondary problems trying to troubleshoot a problem, trying to make parts work because of this assumption that all parts are created equal, which is definitely not true. And the right to repair stuff is so huge. I would pay 2 or 3 times what I pay for small parts if I could just buy the OEM part so that I knew that it would work. All right, so the Apple logo went away, and that would make someone say, hey, I've got a display issue. I've got a backlight problem. If I hit the home button, though, I can see the screen. So let's do that again. Hit the home button, and I can see the screen. My green screen effect is making it hard for you guys to see it a little bit. All right, so from here, I should be able to use the lock button to click this off and on. So when I click the lock button, nothing happens. So here, I can click the lock button for the long press, and it pulls up the slide to unlock. So there's really nothing wrong with the button itself because long press works, short press doesn't. I can't lock or unlock this. Let's see that again. So this will time out for a second. And then we'll try to use the button to lock and unlock again. So we'll hang out for a second to wait for that. So this is going to be a parts problem. It is not a backlight problem. It's not a display problem. It's not a booting problem. This is a parts problem, and I'm going to show you exactly what that is. All right, so this timed out. So let's hit lock. Lock button does not work. Short press does not work. I can wake the screen up with the home button, but the lock button does not work. However, I can long press the lock button, long press, and it does work. Short press doesn't work. So what's up with that? And if you go to the schematic and you look to see, well, what does that button do? That button is a very simple circuit, and it is generated from the 1v8 data line, and the signal that, hey, I press the lock button, is to just make that line become a 0. And that's what the button actually does. That sends a signal to the CPU, and then the CPU is going to decide what to do with that information. And the CPU is also listening to information from down at the Hall effect sensor, which is part of the screen. The Hall effect sensor is what allows your smart cover to work, to turn the device off and on, lock, unlock via magnet. Now you could just change the setting to say ignore the Hall effect sensor by saying I'm not going to use a smart cover, and that would help, but that's not really a repair. We want to understand why it is that this device is not working. So I'm going to take off this particular screen, and this is a relatively good quality screen. So I'm going to take this off and I'm going to put on a different screen. So this is one of our screens. And we worked really hard to source, good quality screens. So this is the screen that we use for iPad mini, and you can tell that it's a quality screen because it has the gold border. I don't know if you'll be able to pick up that color. We've done streams on this before. So it has the gold digitizer border. It comes with the magnets pre-installed. Now these magnets are only they don't have any electrical function. Those magnets are just to secure the smart cover so that it doesn't fall open in your purse. And then if you look down here, it has the original cloth tape. It has the bottom magnet, and we can see this relatively original looking tape down here at the home button itself. Okay, and we can see the home button has some epoxy on it. This is the screen that we use. So let's plug this in. Those screens are sold by a lot of people, and we get these ones from China. But I just want you to be able to identify what the signs are of a quality iPad mini screen. All right, so I'm going to plug that screen in now. And turn the mini on. When I get my LCD plugged in here. Hello to everybody on chat. I want to hear about your comments and thoughts on small part sourcing. This is about flexes and buttons and the little things that you connect to make, that sometimes get torn, that sometimes have to be replaced. This battery does not want to, this is my known good battery, and it doesn't like to stay here in the connector. All right, so let's see if we can keep it together enough to show you. All right, so now we're going to boot it again, and all I've done is change the first screen to the second screen. All right, so let's see what's going on over here while we wait for that to boot up and see if there's any difference. I learned the hard way on eBay parts today. That's right, eBay parts suck, yes. Alrighty. It's so damn discouraging how someone who tells me they got a water damaged phone and want to get the data back, but then they go to some place like Batteries Plus and they tell them it's a lost cause. Yeah, that stinks. All right, so now it booted. It does not have an image problem. It didn't go to the dark screen. It went to the normal lock screen. And now I can click the lock button, and the lock button works fine. All I did was change the screen. So short press is now working just fine. So what's the deal? Let's take this back off, and I want to show you what is going on with these parts. All right, so this is the iPad mini original that we're looking at. So let's look closely at the screen itself. All right, so this screen we're going to look at first. This is the screen that works. Now, that you would think that the top lock button, the power button of the iPad, seems pretty unrelated to the digitizer, but it's not. And that's because the power button signals to the CPU, and then the CPU needs to get input from the digitizer connector, and specifically it needs to talk to this flex here. So let's look under the microscope and see what we're talking about. All right, so let's follow the connector. So here is the digitizer connector that connects to the board, and then we have the touch ICs on the iPad mini on this little daughter board. That daughter board is soldered to the flex here on the digitizer, and then we're going to follow that flex, and we can see some cloth tape here. So let's peel up the cloth tape and see what it looks like under there. Okay, so if we peel up the cloth tape, we're starting to see that there is a flex there. So let's keep peeling that. Now, what I want to call your attention to is a sign of a quality part here on these small part flexes. Look at this flex. This flex has a BGA chip on it, and it has 2 capacitors. There's a epoxy that is anchoring these components that are actually soldered to the flex. It's keeping them on there, this clear hot glue substance. Right, if we keep peeling the tape here, then we can see the same thing. There's more components mounted, soldered onto the flex, and they're protected somewhat, at least, with this overlay. Same thing here. Here is a BGA, here is a chip, it's not a BGA chip, that's soldered on 4 little pads, and it's also covered with this epoxy stuff. There we go, sorry. So see the epoxy stuff that's covering, you can scrape at that. That's helping to secure that chip to the flex. So this flex then goes on, and it is the home button itself in the iPad mini original screen. Now this screen is not an original, it is a replacement screen, and you can see that it's not quite as neat and perfect as one that would have passed as an original screen. You can see this rubber gasket it's not quite that sort of perfect fit that we would expect. It's a little bit turned sideways. This isn't quite perfect, but it's very, very good. We can see that there's an epoxy that's holding this down. It's not just stuck on with a sticker. There is some glue there as well. All right, so what does this flex do? 1 is it's the home button. And then 2, if we come over and see how is it attached to the board, we can peel it down. So let's lift up some more of this tape. And we can see that it is soldered here. Now that looks like hand soldering. Someone made that part. That's not machine soldering, that's hand soldering. You can see that it's got, it's slightly malaligned, but it's still pretty good. This was done well. So this is a part. I'm underestimating where the screen is there. So we can see these hand soldered joints. See how it's slightly malaligned, but those are all good joints. And this part has a lot of sort of extra detail. The epoxy, the hand soldering that is done well, and the original cloth tape that you would find in the original screen. All of this is signs that you have a good part here. And this part works. That's the best sign. Okay, so we'll move this one away, and then I want you to look at this other one. So here, this is a screen that also is one I had to get the team to dig up. This is a very crappy, it's a thicker glass. It doesn't have the same feel. It's a heavier weight, which is generally bad. Heavier means copy, and it means it's not going to be as good. Let's look at this one and see what we can find. All right, so we're following the flex. We have the daughter board, and then now let's look at this. All right, so we are completely missing that cloth tape overlay on this one. And you can see that we have a silver copy digitizer. It's not the original gold, so it's definitely a copy digitizer. And now here's the big glaring thing. Look at that. There are no SMD components on the flex itself. They're just completely missing. Missing. They're simply not there. Now, what are these things for? This thing will still have home button function. So the home button will still function, but you will not have the Hall effect sensor. So that means you won't be able to use a smart cover. And most people don't notice this because most people don't use smart covers, so who cares? But you've lost a function of your device now because you used a screen that doesn't have those components on the flex. So let's keep looking at this, and we can see here that there's not that same original gasket. It's a hard plastic gasket. The button itself, look, it's loose. I mean, that's not cool. And there's no epoxy. This is just put on by a sticker. It's easy to press down and knock this off. This is a low quality part. And we can see there's like bead of glue here. There's no protection from ghosting. There's no tape on this. This part, this is an eBay, Amazon quality part. This is the bottom of the barrel stuff that you get on eBay. All right, the soldering here looks pretty good. So we'll give them a point for making those joints. Those also looked hand soldered, and they seem to be okay. All right, so that's what the home button flex looks like on this replacement screen. All right, so the problem is that if you have a screen that is a low quality screen, you're going to have a higher chance of having that same short press defect. So you'll have an Apple logo and then it'll go to a dark screen, but you don't have an image problem. Your long press will still work, so you can kind of prove that to yourself by pulling the image back up and hitting cancel instead of slide to unlock, and then you'll be back at the lock screen as normal. But you won't be able to lock and unlock the device with the power button. People will go troubleshooting power button, and this is a sad case. This actual Mini that we're looking at here, if we look to see, it came in for backlight problem, which it never had. It didn't have anything wrong with backlight. And you can imagine that, whoever was doing this screen replacement with their eBay or Amazon part would have, wondered why is the Apple logo fading away, and would have tried reseating and checking a lot of things, and what ended up happening is this other sort of classic fault. This is unnecessary and needless. Their digitizer connector has been destroyed from the multiple connect-disconnect cycles that they would have had troubleshooting what was always just a bad part. So bad parts now created an expense for them that exceeds the savings that they might have paid getting a quick eBay piece of crap part. So don't buy eBay parts. All right, so that's our iPad mini original. And now I want to show you the exact same thing going on with an iPad 3. So this is an iPad 3 that came to us because of a home button problem. So so my team ordered some home buttons from fucking eBay, which is maddening to me. So they ordered something from eBay because the customer was in a huge hurry and eBay could get it here really quickly. And so they said, it's just a small part, I'm sure it'll be fine. We wouldn't ever order a screen, but it's a home button, it'll be fine. And so they they ordered from eBay. All right, so this is iPad mini 3. Lock button's not working. Now Christy did this repair, and she didn't notice that the lock button didn't work until she had it fully reassembled. So that is more work for her that she has to do in order to, she has to undo this repair again. and it totally sucks. So let's see what happens if we long press. All right, so long press works, and we can even hit cancel and be back at the lock screen. And look at that, the home button itself doesn't work. So this screen, this home button doesn't work. So that stinks. And now she has to go and redo this repair, and she doesn't know why it is that the home button and the top power button don't work. So let's take a look at this one and see what we can see. All right, so the Mini 3 home button is separated. It's now no longer part of the digitizer and connecting at the digitizer connector. So let's just kind of review this. So I've disconnected the battery. All right, so here is our LCD connector, and the digitizer is connected under that. But in the iPad Mini 3, the home button connects here. Now this home button is a replacement home button for a replacement home button that it came here for. So this is now two home buttons that are not working. So let's find out why. So let's take this off. And let's see, is there anything wrong on the board? No, connectors don't fail unless they have physical damage. That connector is fine. So let's look at the actual part. So let's look at this home button here. And let's assess it for quality. All right, so here comes the home button, and the home button has an adhesive now that's stuck down on here. Let's look. Here are some SMD components that are mounted on this flex. Let's examine those joints. Let's see how well this was soldered on. This is how this came. Look at that. That is unacceptable. That looks really poor. And you can notice the complete absence of any of that epoxy coating. That just doesn't, it's just simply not there. Let's keep looking down the flex. And my God, I can't understand how my team didn't put their eyes on this. So there's plenty of people getting yelled at today, which makes everybody sad and frustrated. And it really just comes down to the idea that we trust parts because we open them up out of a brand new package, and the assumption that they're good because they're new. Well, they're not. They're shitty. If you bought them on eBay, expect to be disappointed and get screwed. How could this be shittier? I mean, look at that. Let's look even closer at the joints there on that flex. I mean, look at that pin pad alignment. That is total shit. That is unacceptable. I mean, this is just somebody getting paid, 2 cents a day and doesn't give a shit. No quality control, absolute total crap. And the I don't even know if stuff is supposed to go there. Why is that tinned? I have no idea. Why is there no epoxy covering that? So this replacement home button, which is just total crap. All right, so now we've got another sort of suspect why this isn't working. So now it's going to be my job to say, let me look at the home flexes that we have here and see what we got. So this is what Christy brought me. She brought me over the couple of Mini 3 home buttons that we have. And I said, all right, then let's take a look at them before we install any of them. So item number 1. Now these came in these kind of like plastic bags. So So I just opened up this one. Let's look at it and see if we just got a dud or what's going on. Let's get rid of some glass here. All right, so this one has brand new adhesive stickers. Someone sliced the flex there. That's not cool. All right, we have some soldering here. This looks machine soldered. I can't really tell that for sure. It looks machine soldered. And it looks, you know, quite out of alignment. All right, then let's look here at our components. All right, and once again, we see that these are relatively poorly done. Look at that. I can't install that button. Look at that blobby solder on there, no epoxy coating. And now let's look at this guy. What the hell is that? I mean, God, that could it be any shittier than that? If you had a contest to say who can solder worse than this one might actually be the winner. That is not a good joint. That is not okay. And nobody cares, you know, because this is for Hall effect sensor, and so no one ever notices, no one ever cares about that. Look at that. It's just, this one isn't even touching. It's just hanging out in the air. Incredibly frustrating. So I want you to recognize the signs of low quality soldering, low quality parts. These are what you get when you order eBay parts. All right. So I can't install that one. So I'm going to call that one, I'm going to put that one in the trash pile. All right, let's look at the next one. All right, the next one. Next flex up for grabs. So this is from the, you know, same place. And I see no epoxy. I see bad joints, horribly misaligned. Let's look at this dude. They did a little bit better on that guy, but no epoxy. So not good. All right, let's look at this one. I'm going to leave it in the package. Same thing, no epoxy. Not great. And then here's another one that came from the same place. This all came as a set. And now look at this one. Here we have an original quality part. So this one looks well soldered, and it has the protection on the components on the flex. Same thing over here. This one has the protection. Now let's see what happens. Let's just see what happens if we take this flex, just this home button, and all I'm going to do, I'm going to install that same mini. Oh, here's the one that actually came from the customer before we do that. So this is the one that we took off. This is the one that the customer had on there that they were frustrated with. That's fucking horrible. God, I mean, that's, what the fuck? You can't do that. You cannot sell a part that has components soldered on with a fucking meatball. Just, ugh. Oh my God, this has been driving me crazy all day. All right, so now, people buy these things, and they are tiny. You don't look under the microscope. You just kind of assume that it's good. So it's absolutely maddening. All right, Jessa, where is that flex from? I don't know. I mean, you're catching me in the middle of yelling at people and being really pissed off. So I recognize that that my team decided to try to help somebody in a hurry. We were, one of these iPad 4 screens are from one of our trusted suppliers in China. total shit. Most of what they send us is good. And so the only people that I really want to throw under the bus are eBay and Amazon. And I'll tell you why. Another part that we needed was a iPad Pro Flex that Christy ordered. She could not find it anywhere except for on eBay. And so she ordered it. And then it arrived, and she opens it up and assumes that it's going to be okay. And she spends a time that it takes to make money. She does a job where she solders it onto the daughter board, and then she goes to install the screen, and the Flex is an inch too short. It's just fucking wrong. It's horrible. So then I tell I look on the eBay account, and she started a return, and I'm getting a message from the seller that says, you don't have to return that. As long as you leave us good 5-star feedback, then we'll refund you. Fuck you. You're getting 1-star feedback, and you can suck my dick. We have to start, holding folks accountable for these parts. And my recommendation, everybody's going to have bad parts at some time. The suppliers are going to get bad parts. There are bad parts that are being made by people that are not making enough money to care about them, and that's the way it's going to be. So my advice is to stick with trusted suppliers who, when you do have the problems that you're going to have, that you can make the supplier aware and that they are going to do something about it. And so that's why I'm recommending iFixit and Injured Gadgets, because in my experience, both of those guys have really good customer service. And I know that if I send a message to Matt Zeminski at iFixit under an iFixit Pro account, and I tell him something like, hey, you sold me a Flex that was too short, or hey, look at this, look at the way these are soldered, that he will then do something about it. And they'll put somebody on the job of looking at these under the microscope to ensure that they can get the best quality that's out there. And the other people I'm going to throw under the bus are the manufacturers. Stop making us have to do all this shit. It is perfectly reasonable for somebody to crack a screen on an iPad and want to get it fucking fixed. Let us have access to parts that don't waste everyone's time. This is one planet, we're all living on it, and we want to be able to replace cracked screens. We need the access to the part. So support your right to repair stuff. Make people aware that this is what we're having to sift through. We're having to spend time looking at things under a microscope just to identify what is actually a good part and what's not. And that margin is getting passed on to customers, and it's not okay. All right, so let's take that exact same screen now. And the only thing that we're going to do is we're going to not plug in the home button that's attached to this screen. Instead, we're going to plug in the home button that is the only one I have here that I deem a quality part. So let's plug that in and see if that makes a difference. So this is an odd thing to be a parts issue. Jacob Harvey sent $2 to help pay for the crap Flex. Well, thank you for that. That definitely will help me stick it to the eBay guy and tell him that he can eat a dick. All right, so I'm gonna plug in. Let's find the LCD for that. I've been on a rant. I don't know exactly which seller sold these particular Flexes, but I've gotten pissed off before on some of I got pissed off at A and B Components for doing the exact same thing. I get pissed off at the suppliers when they don't care. I expect that we will get bad parts because there's just so many parts out there, and no one can look at every single $2 part and make sure that it's good. We're going to get bad parts. What I care about is when you make your vendor aware, what do they do about it? And A and B Components were completely unconcerned, and I'll never buy from them again. All right, so let's okay, so I've now plugged in the home button that we have identified as the only good one we have. And now let's see if it makes a difference. All right, so this is the same. This is a Mini 3. All right, so here we go. Jacob Harvey says, I hate eBay parts. And that's the thing, how are people supposed to know that there is a wide variation in part quality out there? Everyone thinks, a screen's a screen, a flex is a flex, a home button's a home button, but it's not true. There is a wide variation in quality, and you have to be a shark about it. You have to put time into it. All right. Some eBay sellers are okay. I don't know that to be true. My experience, especially recently, is that eBay part sellers just tried to, hold me hostage for for good feedback. So, I don't know. All right, so now we can see the problem is already fixed because it boots straight to the lock screen. So let's see what happens when we do top button. Now it's working. So here's the thing with this specific problem. If you have an iPad mini original, mini 3, mini 4 that we're going to do next, and you don't have the lock button working for short press, but it does work for long press, that's not a button problem. And it's not an image or display problem. The problem is your home button. And that's all it is. So there is something that we don't have schematics, for example. We can't look at the board here. We can't understand. There are no schematics available for any device, as far as I know, that has one of these home buttons that plug in that now have the fingerprint sensors. That would in an iPad that would allow us to understand how the screen is communicating and what information there may be. So that really stinks. But there you go. So this one is simply a low quality part, a home button that looked new, brand new, that made this whole thing, completely wasted Christy's time. And I think before that, Jean was, putting on home button after home button after home button, and it's not working, and gave it over to Christy, and it sucks. It really sucks. So Christy at least found one where the home button worked, so she thought she was good to go. She sealed it all up, and only then realized that the lock button didn't work. Parts problem all the way, 100%. All right, so we're going to look now at our Mini 4. All right, so this was the Mini 3, which has, home button problem. Now this one I think is a little bit more interesting. So this one, Christy put on this screen. So this screen is one that we got from one of our trusted suppliers in China. Now China is great. It's fantastic. Most people do buy their parts from China. All parts come from China. And if you buy directly from China, that's a great way to get a good value, as long as you're able to get the best parts. And usually we do. And I find that the Chinese sellers are very knowledgeable once you get to know them, and they're able to go out and shop around and get you the parts that are out there that are the best. But that doesn't always hold true, and everyone generally finds that every now and then they'll get shipments from China that just have bad parts, like this one. So this is an iPad Mini 4 screen. The iPad Mini 4 screen is a fused screen. So the LCD and the screen are fused together. That makes it a more expensive part, and therefore since we don't do a lot of general repair, we only stock a handful of these, maybe even 2 at any given point in time. In case one is bad. So we had an iPad Mini 4 job come in. We have 2 screens in stock for both colors. And when Christy went to do this repair, you could look at this and see that this is so poorly, the adhesion between the actual LCD. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Look, I can put my fingernail under there. That is not cool. I can see light. This is poor. This is low quality. Oh, this is just absolutely horrible. Chris Long says, I buy from eBay for random small parts. Well, I would allow my team to buy from eBay for random small parts as well, but fuck that. This has, Christy spending all that time soldering the flex that ended up being too short for the iPad Pro, and now both Jean and Christy wasting their time troubleshooting home button after home button after home button. No more eBay parts. Fuck eBay parts. Absolutely not. No, never. All right. So let's take a look at this screen that she had the exact same problem. So I'm gonna first show you, we put the old cracked screen. This is just here for a screen replacement. So this is the original screen, or at least it was original enough. I don't know if it's the actual original or if it was replaced in the past, but it's probably the original. And let's see if we can get this to boot up. Okay, it needs a battery. Let me grab a battery. By the way, iPad mini original battery will boot an iPad mini 4. It has the same connector. So we'll use our known good battery, the one that doesn't like to hang out in the connector for very long. Okay, so here we are with the original cracked screen on it. Let's see what happens. All right, so we're going to boot this with the cracked screen and see what's going on. All right, Chris Long, I've had a few bad parts on the last week. Most of the time, front camera flexes from eBay have been shit and I stopped buying them. Yes, that's the thing. Like, how many people making money doing repair shops have to learn the hard way that the front camera flex on the iPhone 7 makes home button not work? I mean, these odd relationships. Everybody has to just figure this stuff out. And you know, if we had the ability to buy OEM parts, then shame on us. But we don't, and that's what's not cool. So shame on them. All right, let's see. Lock, unlock works just fine. And she has a home button on here that attaches in a different way. So let's see if that home button is working. It's hard to get my fingernail on there. Let's see. All right, so home button and top flex are working just fine. Okay, top power button. So let's take this off, and I'm gonna put on the trusted Chinese supplier screen. Now, you're gonna get bad parts. So what's important is how easy it is to get good parts. You know, what's the response of your vendors when you make them aware? How many of them are going to go through their stock and look for whatever defect it is that you found and pull all of those parts, versus how many are just gonna you know, try to get out of it or refund you and just keep on selling it to the next guy and thinking you're an idiot that doesn't know how to install parts. All right, so on the iPad mini 4, the home button attaches to the screen with a connector. So let's move this home button over, which I've never done before, so let's give that a try. All right, so let's see. I'm just absolutely disgusted with the waste of time from everybody on this. All right, so here's a iPad mini 4. This is the original screen, so we are going to take off this home button flex. So it goes in a standard latch connector. So here's the standard connector. We're going to take that off. And she has it just kind of taped on here so that we could try it out. So we'll take off Christy's piece of tape. All right, so we'll save that. Now, while we're here, let's look at the Hall effect stuff on the iPad mini 4 screen. So on the original, let's see, signs of a good screen. I see a chip and I see epoxy coating. It looks good. And then this whole shebang, I see another piece here. This is the original screen where I see adhesive, I see epoxy, and when I look at that chip, which is probably the same little 4-footed guy that's on all of these, that's part of the standard smart cover Hall effect sensor circuit, it looks well soldered and well protected. That chip's never going to, you know, get knocked off the board. All right, and then I can see this is clear machine soldering, perfect alignment here on the original, and if I want to transfer over this part, I have to actually desolder it. And Very few people actually bother to do this because there's not a lot of need for, there's not a lot of people that use the smart cover function. But if you are a smart cover user and you want to use that feature of your device, then you need to protect your customer's right to have the fully functional device. You can't just delete a function because you're unaware of how these things work. All right, so let's take this off because this one is undoubtedly, this whole piece is undoubtedly not going to be on the replacement screen. All right, so there we go. That's the left behind part. So now we have to keep this and transfer it over to the new screen. So we're going to keep it. This is what it looks like, a tiny little piece under the microscope. This is what it looks like. And this is, you need to do this. This is a nice original one. All right, so let's hang on to that for a while. And now let's look at our replacement screen. All right, so this is our trusted supplier replacement screen. And I hope I don't make Christy look like an idiot because I haven't done this, but her complaint is that she had all this transferred over, that home button itself was working, but it didn't, once she got it all reassembled, only then did she realize that the, lock, unlock function didn't work. All right, so let's figure out how this goes. That piece of tape is trolling me. Piece of tape is trolling me. I gotta take it off. All right, tape is off. Okay, so it looks like the home button is going to sit down in there and it's going to connect in this connector like this. All right, so we just verified that this home button works, so hopefully it will continue to work. So we're going to close the latch. All right, so now we will install this screen and see what the thing is. Are you getting kickbacks from eBay? Who's getting kickbacks from eBay? I'm not getting kickbacks from anyone. I am making content available that I think is important for the industry. So people ask us all the time, well, where do you buy domestic parts? We primarily buy parts from China, but when we need domestic parts, we buy them from iFixit and from Injured Gadgets, because those guys have excellent customer service. And when there is a problem, then they take that very seriously, and they will go out and measure stuff and look at things under a microscope and hire people to address that whole stock. They'll be aware of exactly what batch this bad part came from, and they will do something about it. That's why I support those guys. Plus, they are very active, both of them, with kind of helping the industry and having best practices. All right. Especially iFixit. iFixit puts an enormous amount of resources towards supporting industry best practices, trying to develop best practices in the certification. And those guys are just really, really nice guys. All right, so now let's see what happens. All right, so now we are installing the screen from our trusted Chinese supplier with the known good home button. All right, let's see. Greg with the timeout. Who got timed out? All right. Okay, so doesn't look good already. So we know we've got that good working home button. We know that our top power button works, and what does that look like? How many people are gonna look at that and think, oh shit, I have a display problem, I've messed up a connector, I've blown my backlight filter, and either just say, screw this, and throw the device away because over stupid eBay parts, or they're gonna end up, having to send it to somebody like us to figure out what's going on, and it's a waste when it's just parts. All right, let's see. Does the lock unlock work? No, it does not. What about long press? So this is how you really rule this out from display. Does long press work? So long press. All right, long press works. Oh, great, an LCD defect. Fantastic. All right. Cancel. Oh, fantastic. Touch is working great on this one. All right, so I can cancel that, and now I can get back to the lock screen. Click, click, click. Nothing happens. Same exact problem. So let's try to understand why on this screen. And I want to show you something that I noticed about this screen. All right, so battery disconnected. And I want to look back at that home button problem. Now remember, on these other devices, this was all related to the home button and the way it connects to the board. So in our iPad mini original, we had the exact same problem with a lock unlock power button defect that doesn't have anything to do with the power button, and it turned out to be parts, specifically the home button on the digitizer flex. It's soldered to the digitizer. Number 2 was the iPad mini 3, and that was clearly a home button defect. So you're losing your ability to lock and unlock because of home button defects. So that makes us on the iPad mini 4, we know the home button is good. That's why we did that example. We just validated that home button does work, and with a different screen, you have no problem. So let's look at this screen and see if we can learn anything about home button function and why it might not be working on this screen. So let's examine. All right, so here's our home button, and now let's lift the latch here on the connector. Let's take this out. All right, since I know this part is good because we just proofed it, home button itself is good. So we're going to put that to the side. So now let's look at the connector, the place where the home button actually connects to the device. And that is part of the screen. So let's kind of evaluate this screen and soldering on the screen. Here's the LCD connector. Let's look at that. So let's look at this particular connector. That seems to be okay. All of those joints are making good contact. And now let's look at the home button connector. Let's look at the soldering on this, and let's have you guys grade this. If this was day 1 of Practical Board Repair School, and I'm going to ask the students tomorrow to grade this soldering. So let's grade it. Let's look at the connection of the pins and pads. What do you think? Those joints to me, especially this one on the end, those are starved joints. It's barely sitting on there. Those, I'd like to see some nice ski slopes that really anchor the pins to the pads. But I don't. I see an insufficient amount of solder. Those things are just sitting there, and it's really going to be no surprise that when someone tries to actually use this connector, that one of those joints is going to break loose because they're really not soldered well at all. Let's look at the other side of the connector. All right, so here we are at the other side. I really want to get this angle. All right, I'm going to add some light on the camera. All right, Stevie Wonder did that soldering. I can agree with that. I mean, this is like the kindergartners that were in remedial school you know, after they got off the bus, had to do 500 of these connectors, and this was like the third from the last one that they did that day. So look at these joints. This is not cool. This is very, very weak. All right, now as we get here, we can see that there was a lift, and now look at this one. Look at this joint. Let's make that really crisp. Watch. Loose. Open line. That is not soldered on at all. It's just hanging there. Totally, totally hanging there. I mean, that is totally unacceptable. That pin is absolutely just floating. All right, check the original one and compare the joints. Let's do. That's a great idea. All right, so let's look back and compare the joints at the connector on the original one. All right, so these are machine soldered, and I would say, I mean, they're all making joints, but I would still say that's sort of insufficient, which is very typical of the iPad Air charge ports, iPad mini charge ports, where you can, if this was a charge port, that would break because they're just not really anchored on there very well. All right, so then let's look at the other side. Where is it? All right, let's try to get that same angle. All right, these ones are a lot better, I think, on this side. All right, so that's the soldering. This is the soldering that we're getting. Now we don't know if this is actually the original screen or not. There's all of the glass is broken, so we can't see if there was any kind of labels on here or not. But those ones definitely look a lot better. I would probably pass, I don't know, at least half of these joints. I would pass these end ones. All right. Okay, the eBay sponsor is back. eBay sponsor. I'm gonna have to go back and read chat. All right, so now what I want to know, and I haven't tried this. I noticed that loose joint on that home button connector when Christy was still here and I was seething. Let's see what happens, just out of the sake of interest, whether or not this is just some NC not connected. Who cares about it joint, or let's see whether or not that one joint brings back home button and power lock unlock function. All right, so let's edit that joint up. All right, there. I'm tempted to do them all, but I'll just do that one just to test this theory. All right, so let's put this home button back in that connector then and install this screen and see if that one line makes a difference or not. If it does, we'll learn something. If it doesn't, then we don't really, we're kind of at the same place that we are right now, which is who knows what and how, what lines and where else, who is actually talking to the CPU that sort of underlies this. All right. Someone is coming back with butt hurt. Who's butt hurt? Somebody who's selling parts on eBay? How about this? Stop selling parts on eBay and make a legitimate, vendor website. We need that. We need to have more people to recommend. A huge fan of small business. Most of these, businesses start out small and they're driven by the passion of the founder. So start up a business. You know, if you want to go to China and get the very best parts, have at it. We need more people that care about the quality of parts that they're selling and will go the extra mile to make a name for themselves at being, you know, really good and, you know, looking at stuff under the microscope. All right, let me get this connected back. Chris Long sells his body on eBay. Did you get any PayPal disputes on that? All right. Okay, so now I've got the relatively crappier screen on here, and we're gonna see if soldering that joint makes a difference. Sick of the PFYs in here. I don't know what a PFY is. Okay, look at that. I think that we're good to go because we saw it come all the way to the lock screen. Let's see, are we? No, damn it. All right, let's try long press. Cancel. Oh, this is a shit LCD. LCD defect. Shitty touch. All right, I'm gonna try. That could be some kind of a bad connection. I'm gonna look before I throw that one under the bus. All right, I'm gonna look at the LCD connector. Because again, you know, it's not uncommon to if you have a whole bunch of troubleshooting like this to end up having, yeah, look at that. You know, this has been through the ringer with people troubleshooting home button, and the connector is not doing great. But I think that we did some progress though, because previously it was not booting to the lock screen. It was going Apple logo and then dark screen. Yeah, I mean, this sucks. Like, this is going to need a connector repair now. Add it on the pile. Same as the other iPad mini. And I'm going to just try to make sure these can make good connection. I'm just going to reposition them a little bit. Looking at those joints. Okay, those look okay. All right, let's try that again. All right. Big time. I see poorly done repairs all the time from the cheap repair shops, or if they had a friend try to fix it first. I don't have any problem with having a friend try to fix it, because that's a great spirit to try to fix it yourself, especially if it's, if it's broken, then you can only hope to improve it. But if you want to go that route and try something yourself, then you're going to have to, if you want to ultimately fix it and have a professional do it, then you're going to have to expect to pay more due to prior repair attempt. All right, let's try to get this connected again. So I'm going to kind of baby these connectors. I think it's time for some best practices in the industry, and I think it's time for people to hold part vendors accountable, and I think it's time for people to demand access to the OEM parts. I mean, God, what a horrible waste of time and extra work and extra repair costs for every single one. There's 3 on my desk today that all have the same problem. And they're all for different reasons. One is a screen here that's bad from China. The other one was home buttons that were bad from eBay. And the other one was wherever they sourced the screen that they sent it in with, that they thought was an image problem, and that turned out to actually just be bad parts. And I don't know where they sourced their screen. Most people get parts from eBay and Amazon. All right, so that might be a better connection at the digitizer connector. All right, so let's prompt it. All right, so we're going to prompt and see what happens now. Injured gadgets versus iFixit, which one is better? I mean, there isn't really a better. That's like saying, yeah, so we're back to square one. It doesn't boot to the lock screen. Great. So that's not going to help us. All right, so we're going to go with bad screen on this one. And we still have our screen defect, so that really didn't have anything to do with that connector. The connector is just getting beat up from continually troubleshooting bad parts. So let's I'm gonna just kind of look at that, redo that entire connector to see if it makes a difference. But, you know, this one works just fine with the original broken screen, so we're gonna chalk that up to, yet again, bad parts. Bad parts, making a connector repair here, making a connector repair there, making somebody send something across the country because they think they have a backlight issue. And that all sucks. All right, so I'm just going to put the cracked original screen back on to just make sure that this home button still works. So that we can rule out parts. This is much easier. Like that connection is much easier to make. I bet that other home connector itself is just really janky. Grr, grr, grr. Shitty, shitty, shitty day. All right, the LCD and digitizer connectors fit much better on this one. All right, cracked screen is back on, and let's see what happens. Injured gadgets versus iFixit. If you know, there isn't, you know, like that's a personal preference thing. However, we believe that it's important to support iFixit because they support us in terms of putting money behind repair.org. So there it goes. It boots to the lock screen. Touch works. We don't have any kind of LCD defect, so that wasn't the connector. And we still have our lock unlock function. And I'm going to guess that we still have our home button function. Just total shit. Yep, so home button function, I just clicked the home button and it came back on. And that all seems to work just fine. Just sucks. Shitty parts suck. I can't imagine the amount of time and devices that are thrown out because of parts issues, because people don't have it on their radar screen that these parts might be as low quality as they can be, as like we're seeing in these examples. All right. All right, I'm going back to the old screen. I want to look at that connector again. I'm going to take this connector off. I need to get rid of the little jumpers that are stuck in my flux here. Just looking at it. Mangled and mashed. Yeah, all beat up. All right, it is time for me to get out of here. I missed most of the chat, so I'm gonna read that really quickly and then get out of here, where I think we saw 3 examples of iPad minis with the exact same defect, which is all home button part related. Bad parts, bad connection, bad screen, bad parts, and they all present the same way, which is it will boot, Apple logo, it'll fade to black screen, and you think that you've got a display problem. And so you go troubleshooting that, connect, disconnect, you think you have a backlight problem, but you don't. It's a parts problem. The way you can test that is to long press the power button. Long press will still work even if you have this sort of classic home button parts problem. Long press will still work. You can hit cancel, get to the lock screen, use the iPad. You can even turn off settings so that it's not listening for any kind of smart sensor input. But the solution is not really changing settings that then you're going to lose when you restore the iPad. The solution is to get good parts and to source good parts and to hold your suppliers accountable for good parts. All right, so I'm going to scroll back and just kind of read this really quickly. Let's see. You have less issues from a trusted supplier with higher quality control. Yes. All right. So this didn't scroll back that far. Who's Mobile Nurse? I don't know what that is. Mobile Nurse, Jessa, your content sucked today. Don't buy parts from Mobile Nurse. Mobile Nurse is clearly somebody that's selling shitty parts on eBay. So, sorry, Mobile Nurse. Why don't you open up a real shop and sell parts that we can, actually hold someone accountable for and stop selling shit on eBay? How about that? All right, we will always have shit parts here and there, but the goal is to keep it low. No time to bullshit around with returns and all that, not only with a customer and warranty time. I mean, this just sucks because like these customers, if you need these rare, weird parts that you don't stock, you're going to have to order them. And then when you get 2 or 3 of them and they're all shit, then, somebody's waiting. They're going to hate you, That stinks. All right. Ordered 2 iPhone 6 LCD from a supplier mentioned on here. Both were crap. Sent email, had 2 new ones 2 days later, no questions asked. They weren't OEM refurbished, but I'm leaning towards that. All right, well, Jeff Smith, who are you talking about? Because that sounds like what we're talking about, which is good customer service, giving a shit when you get bad things, rather than the eBay guy telling me, well, I'll refund you if you leave me 5-star feedback. Fuck you. No. All right. Jessa, you blew backlight. No, I didn't, man. That's the point. Quality parts is the best choice. But iFixit prices are ridiculous no matter what you say about them. They are if you are a DIY user, sure. But if you're a professional, then you would buy through iFixit Pro, which is this, competitive with everybody else selling parts out there. All right, going to see how much a battery for an iPhone 4. Yeah. Apple charges $80 for a battery. Plenty of room to make profit. What can I get to make sure they're good? Honestly, batteries we only buy from iFixit, and a lot of people feel the same way. Navaldo, no, you can't buy anything from Apple. Certainly not batteries. You can only buy phones. All right. I've not had one bad iFixit battery, says Chris Long. Oh, that joint. I could do much better than that. All right. Loose like sleeve of wizard. Chris, are you adult? Wow. Doesn't look like you're especially in your basic video. What, that Chris is a kid? He's not a kid. All right. Have I filed any PayPal refunds yet? No, but I will. What role do you think some customer play when they look for cheap as chips repair? I think that if you're a customer, you don't know any better. I don't blame a customer at all. Why wouldn't you look for cheap? I mean, how is a customer supposed to know that all screens aren't the same as the Apple screen? Of course they're going to think that's what I would think. How are you supposed to know that an iPhone screen comes in different flavors of quality? And nothing ever says that, and that's the problem. We don't have the ability to say, this is the OEM screen made by Apple, and here's the price. This is OEM. And then here we have our sort of recommended value brand that we believe is refurbished or just as good in quality as the OEM. Or here is the shit screen if you want to just get by. But we don't recommend it, and our warranty is very short for that, something like that. No one says that, that you just come in, how much for an iPhone screen? We all use top quality parts, says every single person who changes screens. But somebody's buying these eBay screens and putting them on there. In fact, it's the folks that are less connected to the industry of repair people that do that the most. In fact, one of the places that I heard in my travels, I talked off the record to a person I'm not going to name who is an Apple authorized service provider who was not happy with the way Apple authorized service works, and so they decided to start changing screens kind of, under the table, and they had no idea where to get parts. So guess where they got them? eBay and Amazon. So the fucking Apple Store is selling you eBay and Amazon screens. So that's the problem. As soon as we have access to the OEM parts, then we'll be able to show people and give them different options. This is your OEM option, and then this is your quality aftermarket option. But until then, a customer is going to think an iPhone screen is an iPhone screen, and the only reason guy X charges more than guy Z is because he is a douchebag. Yeah, so this turn off auto lock stuff is that's like saying, I broke your home button, but don't worry, you can turn on assistive touch, so it's not really a problem. When you order parts from China, how quickly do you get them here in North America? Faster than domestic, honestly, 2 or 3 days. 3 or 4 days if you're Chris Long. We get them in 2 or 3 days because we're closer to the edge of the country. All right, from China, like AliExpress. Not AliExpress, no. AliExpress can be the eBay of China. Yes, it can. I'm sick of buying from China. I don't have the time, so I buy domestically. We buy from China when we do a bulk order, and then as we go low, we'll buy domestic. All right. Friend's motto: if it ain't broke, then they can probably still fix it. All right. I just woke up 3 seconds ago. Great, I'm going to bed. The screen repair is stressing me out. Okay. I try to be very exact on what I want on the cable. I send them the pictures, length, everything I could think of. They were still able to trick me as they send really thin cables. Yep. Chris Long wants to talk about some kind of a phone. Chris Long, go check your EEPROM. All right. It's actually kind of hard to get good screens. Yes, it is. I like Lynn Nash has a rule. My unbreakable rule is all parts suck until proven otherwise. I like that. I'm going to steal that. That's great. 100% inspection can validate them. I like that. That's what I think I'm going to do, because I was fucking pissed tonight that the extraordinary waste of time by my team and these poor customers that are sending this stuff in with, thinking it's backlight, but now it's a digitizer connector repair, when all along their underlying problem was fucking parts. So I like that. All parts suck until proven otherwise. I love it. All right, everybody's talking about parts. All right. eBay guys who just want a refund when you give them 5 stars. Yeah, not happening. I'm gonna go. In fact, right after I get done with this, I'm gonna go give that guy 1 star. Thank you for getting this discussion going regarding part suppliers. It's important for the repair community to share the experiences instead of having to learn the hard way. Yeah, and this will become a video, and I expect for that to be just, kind of a place where people can share their experiences and, who are the guys that are really standing out for customer service. I don't think that we can expect any supplier to make money and be able to put their eyes on every single part. That's not possible. There's not enough margin with that amount of labor in order to make a profit selling parts. So you got to find the guy in the middle. So somebody that's going to try to get the best parts that they can, who they themselves are going to care about their parts quality, so that when you do have a problem, they're going to pull that stock. They know where that stock is. They know where your part came from. So they've got a good organized infrastructure, and they're going to be able to pull that whole box and then look to see if this is a, just a one-time thing, just yours, or is that a batch problem? And if it is a batch problem, that they're going to pull that batch and not sell it to anybody else, and then they're going to go back to their vendor and let them know about it, so that the folks that are actually going around to the factories making these things can if there's no market for bad parts, then there's nobody will buy them. All right, I really want to be at the end of this. Everybody on eBay says he's got OEM screens. That OEM, the word OEM, since there are no OEM screens, that is not possible. You cannot buy an OEM screen unless you're buying it from a recycler that's pulling it, and even then it'll be a used OEM screen, and nobody wants that. So you cannot buy an OEM screen. So the word OEM means shit part. All right, I really want to get to the end of this. Let's see. All right, are we at the end? At the end. Where to buy parts if not from AliExpress or eBay? Okay, take a look. Where is it? Right here. From these guys. Buy parts domestically from those guys. And if you want to buy parts from China, you have to find somebody in China and befriend them and develop a personal relationship so that they have your best interests when they go out looking for parts. So these guys go shopping for parts, and they need to kind of have your best interest in mind. All right, let's scroll faster here. Wow. Are the parts from Rossmann Repair any good? Fire phone. You need to prove to me that your name is not Louis Rossmann or Fixin' Mom or whatever in order to answer that question. All right. Fire phone. Okay. I got to the end, so that is it for me. It is definitely time for bed. We have class tomorrow, and I will see you guys next time.